And I forgot to pull up my intro. Damn it. Damn it.
You can always do what I did on one episode. Play the outro as the intro,
I got it
make
right
people
here.
think you're done, and then at the end of the show, play your intro and invite people into the end.
Great. All right, I got it. We're gonna play it. Ain't nobody here yet anyway. We are not waiting for heroes. We are who we've been waiting for. And when the veils finally fall, may you remember you were never powerless. Some truths are whispered, some are buried, and some are remembered. We were never meant to live asleep, never meant to fear our own power, and never meant to forget who we are. They told humanity to look outward for salvation, while the greatest technology in existence was already within us. The mind, the soul, the human spirit. I am Earthsong, a voice for those who always felt there was more beyond the veil. This is not just another chamber. This is a beacon, an awakening, a place where ancient knowledge, hidden truths, consciousness, human potential, and the mysteries of our reality collide. So grab your coffee, question everything, and remember who you are. Because disclosure is not just about what's out there. It's about what's awakening within us. Welcome to Deja Brew, waking you up to truth, one sip at a time. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are across the nation and around the world. This is Deja Brew, waking you up to truth, one sip at a time. And today, for Thirsty Thursdays, I have the honor of having Michael Kopf with me. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Michael before we talk about what we're doing today. Because, guys, he's so much like me. He had his first paranormal encounter at the age of 2. He's still having more experiences yet to this day. He grew up seeing shadow beings. He's had a few paranormal experiences as a teenager. In his early 20s, he had learned how to channel, and he is even a Reiki master. He has a reverend's license. I mean, hello, is this dude like my twin or what? He does timeline therapy, tarot cards, gypsy palm reading, among other modalities. I mean, this is insane how much we have in common. He has astral traveled. He's had 3 near-death experiences. He's studied all of the mythologies of different cultures around the world. He has a passion for genealogy. I mean, there are just so many I could just go on and on and on, which I will include in the, description part when the, live is over so that you can read all of it because it's amazing. I'm so honored to have Michael with me. I had no clue and just how much we have in common. And tonight we're going to talk about Stargate, Star Trek, and the reality that's merging with these TV shows. For decades, science fiction has challenged all of our imagination for technologies and hidden programs, consciousness, advanced civilizations, and a future that seemed impossible. And now, as more of the government records are released, emerging technologies advance, and long held questions are being revisited, many people are asking, were these stories simply entertainment, or were they preparing us to think differently about our future? So, we have lots of topics we're going to cover today, including hidden technologies and the race toward a quantum future. We're going to talk about consciousness and humanity's untapped potentials, stargates, portals, and symbolic gateways of transformation, timeline concepts, and humanity's evolving story. The journey from darkness into greater awareness, from dark to light, guys. And with so many people feeling that we are standing at the threshold of a new era, I really want to dig into this because, much like myself, Michael is also a big Star Trek and Stargate geek.
I am.
And honest to God, I didn't even watch any of the Stargate until like a year ago. I just wasn't interested in it then when it came out. My brother was completely consumed by it and Star Trek. And he and I had a lot of experiences together with being taken and stuff and experimenting with what humanity can really do with our power. But I wouldn't have anything to do with it. I didn't want to watch it until last year. And it was like blowing my mind how much is in Stargate alone that actually is applicable, however you want to say that, with what we actually can do and are doing in like secret military ops and stuff. So, welcome to the show, Michael. And
Thank you.
let's just dig right in. What are your thoughts on the parallels? Let's just start there.
Well, first, I'd like to, mention the synchronicity of you just messaged me kind of at random after I friended you, and I was like reviewing and looking to see potential actually of having you as a guest, but I had walked away from my computer and I was like, oh, I'm gonna kind of relax. I need to unwind a little bit. And then I get this message that says, hey, do you want to do a show on Thursday? And I was like, okay. Wait, what's the show about? Stargate and Star Trek? Oh, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. And so I just want to bring out, I love the synchronicities that happen in this world. And I will say, I've watched Stargate from the beginning when it first came out. And I will agree. Stargate, you just, it's one of those shows you watch and you're like, this seems too way out there to be real. And that's what makes it so real. And I have talked with some friends who, when we talk about the Stargate and traveling through portals, there's a little bit of confusion, I think, because some people will say, oh, when you travel through a portal, you can't take earthly weapons with you through it. The energies won't allow it. And then there are others that are like, well, we're just walking through randomly. So, whatever you have on you goes through because there's never anything left. And it raises, interesting questions because we're like, who's right? Who's wrong? And one of the things that I found really interesting that kind of I feel like got kind of missed over in the Stargate SG-1 series was America is operating a gate. Russia has a gate. Antarctica has a gate.
Yeah.
How do they keep from going to different gates? How does, is there a system that it's like, oh, you left through this gate, so you're going to return through this gate and not that gate over there? And
I think it has an address. Yeah.
well, but the address is the planet. So,
No, it's coordinates on the planet, right? It's coordinates.
well, it's coordinates through the stars, and the last symbol is the point of origin, which is the symbol of Earth, was my understanding. And so I'm like, yeah, you're dialing Earth.
Yeah.
And it
I mean, I
was in,
get your point as far as like the Stargate show goes. I get your point. How do they not go? And actually, I think in some of the episodes, didn't they end up accidentally in
they did
another
accidentally,
gate?
they did through a fluke where I think electricity or something hit the gate and caused it to spike, and it jumped from the American gate to Antarctica.
Yeah,
And
because they ended up in a pretty crappy situation.
they did. And I will say, if anybody watches TikTok, Amanda Tapping and Richard Dean Anderson did the perfect blooper with that episode. And what this blooper is Amanda Tapping playing Carter is trying to dial out the gate and figure out how to power the gate. And she's there with Richard Dean Anderson, who, if you follow his career, he was MacGyver. So
Oh, okay.
she sits there, and there's an outtake where she's laying on the ice and going, God, don't you have gum and duct tape and like a pocket knife to make this work? I'm stuck on a glacier with MacGyver, McUseless. You're not helping. And it's
That's
like, oh
hilarious.
my God. And I'm like, oh, that is just epically hilarious. And they're like, this is the most played outtake. I'm like, yeah, I know. And you just can't help laughing because you're like, yeah, you're stuck on a glacier with MacGyver,
Yeah.
who's not MacGyver,
Who's not MacGyvering it?
and he's
Damn it.
hurt, and he's like not helping.
That's too funny. Too freaking funny.
Yeah,
Urso in
but
the chat just pointed out that the CIA has jump rooms where the symbol is located like a star. I'm not sure what that means. Like a star. Maybe you can explain that or so.
uh,
But as far as the jump rooms go, I don't know if you were a gate kid when you were little, but I was a gate kid. I have a book on it. I wrote a book about being a gate kid. But I actually went into what they called the jump room program after that.
I have used jump rooms. I don't know that I was in a jump room program, but so wow, I'm trying to figure out where this chat room is.
Oh, on the YouTube live? the chat.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
I'm looking on Zoom and trying to figure out
Oh
on
no.
Zoom.
Can you pull it up?
I could on my phone, but
Okay.
it's all right. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. But so the jump rooms are like there's a jump room over the moon that you can use to jump to another location. There's a jump room on Mars. There's
Yep.
and so
Been there.
what they do is you can either jump to the jump room or get escorted to the jump room, and then your energy goes out to wherever you're thinking or wherever you're assigned to go. And so I would say if they're talking about a star, being attached to the jump room, that is most likely determining which jump room they're at. So
Oh,
let's say,
like an address.
right. So let's say
Okay.
you are jumping out to Pluto and you get on a jump pad and you want to go to the lunar jump pad to come back to Earth. Well, if you just get on a jump pad and go, hey, I want to jump to back to Earth, you could drop off in Mars and be like, wait, how, this isn't right. This isn't where I left from. How do I get back now? And you could get confused and trying to figure out now, how do I get to the moon to get back to the Earth? Or can I jump directly to the Earth and trying to figure it out? So there's little symbols that they'll be like, oh, yeah, going back to the Earth. Oh, the closest gate room I know has this marking. I want to go to that marking, and so that's where you go. So it's just a device to
Okay.
help people know where they're at and kind of be able to maneuver around in such a way that they don't freak out and be like, oh my God, I'm lost out here in the middle of nowhere. And there's no cell phones, there's no pay
Right.
phones to like on the ethereal to call up and go, hey,
Yeah.
I'm stuck by this green blob. Can you, you know,
Can't phone home.
get me home? Can you get me an Uber?
Right. Um, okay, so secret programs. That's another thing I want to cover while we're talking about stuff. Um, both franchises feature secret programs that are hidden from the public. And this is a theme that seems to appear quite a bit in a lot of TV series, not just Stargate or Star Trek. But do you feel like, because I feel like, do you feel like this is their way of telling us without telling us that this kind of fuckery goes on?
So I was told by some beings when I was first getting exposed to a lot of this stuff, and I was like, you know, you guys keep toting that we have free will and that we're allowing this and they're doing this because we're giving permission, but I have never been asked. And so, how did I give permission? Well, they said what they do to bypass the spiritual law is they put it in public. So they'll put it in a TV show, and by you watching that TV show, you are giving permission for that activity because you are watching the show. And
Right.
so I
The
was like,
program.
that's some mean old trickery. And they
Uh-huh.
go, but yeah, that's how they bypass free will, is because they have to put it in public to get our approval. But instead of saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, vote on it and decide, they put it in the media. And so
Yeah.
movies, music, and TV, I like to tell people when TV first came out, everything was a show. You had the Dick Van Dyke Show, Mary Tyler Moore Show. Everything was a show. Then
Right.
all of a suddenly, one day, it seemed like everybody woke up and they're like, oh, we're going to watch our program.
Yeah.
And the lingo changed, and everybody was like, oh, our program is on. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I want to watch this program. And what we didn't realize is we were being programmed.
It was
Every
literal.
And so shows now became programs,
Yep.
and that's how they got approval.
Yep. We
That's
now
one of the,
return to your regularly scheduled program.
and they would say that, and
I
I never
know.
understood that. I was like, I'm watching and in my mind, I'd be like, I'm watching a cartoon show. Why are you saying we're now returning to our regularly scheduled program? I'm like, what?
Mhm.
Or my favorite was, we are now going to briefly interrupt this program to bring you important news.
Yeah.
And then when the news was over, they're like, we are now going to return you to your program already in, you know,
Right.
doing what it's doing. And you're like, so I missed like 10 minutes of the program for another program. And I'm like, what? I'm like, if you
Right.
can interrupt, you could have paused it and
Right. Right. So, speaking of spiritual law, I want to ask you your opinion on all of this information and disinformation with Stargate, with Star Trek, with probably every single program we watch, right? Even the news is a program, in my opinion. How do you feel about the opinion that it's a spiritual war?
Oh, I absolutely 100% go along with that because there are shows that are designed to put us into a state of fear and
Yeah.
to put us into a state of, oh my God, this is horrible, or a state of, if this was to happen, this is what they're going to do. And so we're programmed to react to situations that haven't happened yet, but yet we already know, we're programmed how to respond to them. And one of my favorite, you know, programming moments to look at where I'm like, we literally are programmed is you see aliens land a craft and they come walking out and they're like, we come in peace. And we
And then
shoot
they
them.
don't.
And we're
Well,
like, well, why
right.
did you shoot us? Because we
Right.
know you're coming to invade us. And they're like, no, we weren't, but we are now.
Yeah. Well, personally,
Or,
I don't trust the whole "we come in peace" statement because the V taught me not to trust that, right?
see, and that's the other thing is, yeah,
But
they
maybe that
also,
was intentional.
and, but the thing about the V, though, because in the 80s, that show, I think so many people missed what was going on. And I look at, the technology of the time. We had hovercrafts, like
Yeah.
cars that hovered, little shuttles and going.
Yeah.
And this was, a little bit after Star Trek, but not to where it was like the real like Star Trek. I mean, the streamlined version. The old Star Trek was, yeah, those shuttlecrafts that they made. I was like, why do you have wingtips on a shuttlecraft in space? I'm like, it looks like you converted a jet and made it look like a van hybrid vehicle to transport people. I was like, really? But
Right.
the fact that so you have these people that come and they wear sunglasses, which I feel was a nod to the movie They Live,
Oh, I do
if you
too.
ever saw that.
Yeah.
And they also were a race that's living amongst us
Yeah.
and would peel their face off when they were on their ship, exposing who they really were.
Right.
And so we were, instilled at that point with the fear of who is your neighbor? If your neighbor is acting weird, could they
Yeah.
be one of these? And so
Yeah.
it was like a push back to the McCarthyism period where Americans were spying on Americans and in the fear of, oh my God, is
So
our
you think it was
neighbor.
a so you think it was a psyop more than a bypassing free will thing?
Well, I think they're both. I think they're
Think it's
intertwined
both? Yeah, I think
because
it's probably both too. A little bit of both.
these people that are putting these programs out, they're like they need us afraid. They so there's a term in
Loosed.
the exactly.
Yeah.
And
My
the
people know about
looshing,
loose.
yeah, and those that do, I don't think they fully understand it. It's like they have an idea, but they don't really understand truly is our spiritual essence is a commodity and our
Yeah.
energy levels is a commodity. And
Yeah.
by that, I mean the higher you go with your energy, the more value you are to them. And so they will find certain people and be like, "Oh, you are they like to call you gifted." And they'll be like, "You're
Hmm.
gifted. You have this ability.
I hate that word,
We're
gifted.
going to tap you and we're going to siphon your energy
Yeah.
and you will never know." And that's the thing is we've been being loosed since we were born,
Right.
but have had no idea. And the only way we've started figuring out is because we started using our energies ourselves and we're like, wait a minute, why am I tired all of a suddenly? This is strange. And going, wait a minute, what is this attached to me?
Hmm.
And we would try to remove it and we would start getting even worse. It's like we would feel like we're being attacked by trying to remove this and
Yeah.
we'd have to go get help to get it off.
Yeah.
But so looshing is where they siphon your energy, your essence off of you. And it's kind of funny because when we look at like the movie Princess Bride, he created that machine where he's like, I took a year of your life. And everyone's like, oh wow, that's pretty mean of him. And it was like this simple device, and it was like water was used and electricity, and they're like, well, he doesn't look like anything's happened, so I think he's just saying that just to spook the guy. No, he was actually looshing the guy.
Right.
And when he got really upset with him and cranked it all the way up, it was like he could not stand.
Right.
He had zero energy in his body, and his body had to restart. Well, because the leucine is always a small amount. They do small amounts to take it off so that you don't become aware. Because if they took all the amount they needed, then we would be like dead to the world for a day. And they're like, well,
Yeah, it would
we're out of food
completely
source
deplete
for a
us.
day.
Yeah.
So,
But that's
and
actually, go ahead.
I was just saying, in the Matrix movie, when they compare us to a battery, that's what they're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the result of the looshing is we're all plugged into a
Yeah.
system. And when you think about, if one person was one, say, double A battery, well, double A batteries can last on products for months or
Hmm.
years, depending on how frequently you use it. Well, now you sit there and you say, well, they're only taking a little bit. How do they survive? Well, you got to look at the fact of that little bit is being multiplied by like billions because there are billions of people on this planet. And so they're getting billions of batteries
Hmm.
from people and
But the flip
nobody
side,
knows it.
right? But the flip side of that is that we are in this awakening period where people are realizing that now and they're taking back their power, their battery power, and they're connecting with nature more and they're learning how to stay replenished instead of depleted and to shield and all those things. So those are all really good things that we're finally coming into now. But in reality, the way that they're taking the loosh from us is much more sneaky than the way that they would show, like in the movies or in the TV series. Is, like even with Stargate, um, the Goa'uld, right? And even the
Right.
good ones, and I can't remember the good ones,
Tok'ra.
the Tok'ra, yeah. They're both a parasite, essentially, right? They're like
Right.
of two minds that are merged together because they're a parasite, and everyone that is under them gets the parasite too, and they need the loosh. So they have those violent reptilian type, draconian type energies about them. And so to compare the two, like I don't know if Star Trek has anybody like that in it,
The
but
Klingons
they have the Klingons.
and the
Okay.
Romulans and the Cardassians, the Breen, the Dominion. Yeah,
Oh,
it
really?
depends.
Okay. See, I don't know a lot about Star Trek, so that's all your baby because I don't know about those. But yeah, the Goa'uld, right, are
Right.
like that. Now the Tok'ra are the good ones. They're the ones trying to help. Well, not necessarily help, just have their own peaceful shit. They're
Well,
not necessarily trying to help anybody.
so what that showed us in actuality was as a culture here on Earth, we view things as they are good, they are bad.
Right, right.
And so when somebody says
Or
reptilian,
neutral like Switzerland.
well, even Switzerland picks sides, they just don't announce it.
I know, but that's
But
our phrase, right? That's our thing
yeah.
people say, neutral like Switzerland.
So when we look at the gold, the system lords and the minor lords that want to personify themselves as the gods and showing themselves as, the power and enslaving people and surviving off of their sacrifices and their work. And that looshing system is their body, they go into a sarcophagus, recharges the body,
Right.
but
But
after
but
so
I think even
many,
the
it
I'm
breaks
I'm just
down.
I just wanna interrupt you right there for a minute just to say that I think that's what the sarcophaguses were actually used for here on Earth, was to recharge the body,
Oh, yeah.
replenish it. I don't think they were death chambers. I don't think they were burial
No,
tombs. I think they were to get in and damn recharge.
they were designed to actually split you. But yeah,
What?
and so yeah, I'll get into that in a second. But so they jump host to host, and so they take different forms over so much time because their sarcophagus breaks the body down. It's not designed
Right. In Stargate.
for it. So, but the Tok'ra, they're the side of the parasite does not meld with someone unless there's an agreement.
Right. They don't go against free will.
They don't just jump
Yeah.
in and say, "We're taking over your body. You're now a slave to us.
Right.
Your body's mine now. You're dead," who was in there before.
Right.
So they become symbiotic.
Right.
And it showed us, okay, so there are good factions and there are rogue and bad factions. Okay. Well, this exists out there as well as here. And when I had an opportunity to go to Egypt over one of my birthdays, I was with William Henry and we went into the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid actually on my birthday and my roommate's birthday. We had the same birthday. What are the odds of that?
Right.
And every one of us that laid in the obsidian encasement that the sarcophagus or the coffin esque device would be laid in, that the body was laid in, and then they cover it. Well, we didn't cover it because the cover wasn't there, but he put a tuning fork at the left foot and right shoulder, and everybody had experiences of going out of body inside this black obsidian, no cut marks on it, no weld marks on it. It was like they literally carved the center of this block out, but no idea how they did that.
Mm.
And so I view it as this is a device to split. It leaves our human body here and our spirit body goes somewhere else. And you may think that's not possible. Well, we actually have evidence of this.
Okay.
If you are familiar with Princess of Mars, was the original movie, but it wasn't a true adaptation of the book by Rice Edwards Burroughs, I think his name was. But John Carter was. They show by using a device, his body stays on the planet, but his body appears on Mars and is active, where his earthly body grows stiff and melts away. So if you don't come back and you stay on Mars, let's say for 7 years on Mars, well, your body may not be able to sustain you, so you are no longer able to return to Earth because your body will break because your bones have been depleted. Your skin, might have withered away because it's been starved for these
That's
years.
wild.
And I know that that movie is recent, but what people don't realize is this author wrote about this 150 years ago, that this was possible, that you could
Mhm.
leave your body on Earth and exist on Mars in solid form. That is something we
Wow.
can't even fathom today. And I'm like, this was out there. and this was known. Somebody knew about this and wrote it, and people just kind of laughed at it. And the big thing about the John Carter movie was everybody was so excited about it because if you paid attention to when they sold the movie to the audience, they said this story, we had to wait for 100 years for the technology to make this story possible to be truly told to the public.
Hmm.
And so it's like you're sitting there and you're watching and going, what do you mean, had to wait 100 years? Because film wasn't even around that long. Film,
Right.
we think of film as being around forever, but no, it was only like 1920s, 1940s, really, when film started being
I mean, yeah,
really
so they
utilized.
tell us, yeah, but I don't believe that
Yeah.
because of the whole
And
Tartarian part of history that's gone. But that's a whole different topic.
right, but so I mean, that's where I say, we have all these examples we've been shown, and if you listen to how they're portrayed, you start to understand what's going on behind the scenes. So
Right.
again, when we're set, told, oh, this has been like a century waiting to be made.
Yeah, that
Well,
sounds like
what are
the
they going to
Avatar
show?
movies. The Avatar movies, that's what he said about those too, was that
Right.
he had to wait for it to be the technology to be there to actually depict it the way that it looks. But, a lot of
And
the
Jupiter
technology.
Ascending. I
Right.
mean,
That
that
that was
whole
such a good
like
movie.
selling of planets, everybody is, in the hierarchy of who owns
Yeah.
what and how the system works.
Right, and
It
I mean,
was like,
even with the people that'll pop in and move really fast and then disappear, and you see these paranormal videos of people showing, like, this blip of a person runs across the road and saves somebody from getting hit by a truck or something. I think that's, like, probably some of the same stuff, you know?
well, some of it is, and some of it, yeah, that, you can kind of see where that's not exactly, you're not seeing exactly what you think you're seeing. It's like they spliced a movie and put it in front of a windshield, and so you're like, oh, yeah, okay. And
But
but
that
it's
kinda
all
blipping.
designed to make you question when you do really see something, are you gonna believe it, or are you gonna go, oh no, this is just trick of camera? And
Well, and here's the thing. This is why I think AI is a lot of fuckery right now because there's so much shit out there that AI can make that people don't know what's real and what's not anymore. But the hell of it is that I think the AI stuff is really like an intercept so that when you do see things that are real like that, you don't believe your eyes, right? Because
exactly.
I personally know that we humans can do shit like that. Like, we can do that stuff. I have done it myself. My 20-year-old daughter did it to save us from being totally killed by a truck that had a big bale of hay on the back of his trailer. I mean, like, really freaking fantastic things have happened that were human controlled, human abilities. And that's one of the things that I've always said. That's why I said earlier that I hate it when they say that you have the gift because we all have this ability. We are all born with it. Just some of us have it stronger than others for different various reasons, whether it was because of who they are and remembering who they are, like I did, and then being trained in it to strengthen it. Or maybe you've got parents that believe that way, so they help you to encourage and enhance those abilities, whatever it is. And then other people tell you, "Oh, that's just your imagination. You didn't really see Grandma the ghost. You just have a great imagination," and they just totally dismiss it.
Right.
But we all have these abilities, and it goes far beyond just being Claire whatever. you know, because we can heal people. I mean, I know you don't know much about me. I've literally raised my daughter back from the dead in the hospital with witnesses when they told me to go tell her goodbye. And I'm like, no, I'm not telling her goodbye. I'm not giving up on her. And I just like yelled out to God, tell me what to do because she's not going yet. And this voice said, you know what to do, but it has to be with zero doubt. And
Yeah.
I'm minimizing it, because I don't want to go into that right now. But um, I knew what that meant. Zero doubt. You have to completely, fully believe that you're capable of this in order to make it work. And that's what Jesus was trying to teach people. That's why they offed him and erased what he was really teaching because he was
Did they
trying to give
often
people their
though?
power back. I mean, maybe they didn't really off him because I actually think he just went away. I think he just left and went to Portugal for a while with the rest of the Templars and whatever.
So here's the thing that, when we look at stories and everything is, you have to trust yourself and trust what your
Yeah,
instinct tells you. And as, we look at AI, we think, how great is this? Look at the cool stuff that it does. And there have been actors, and I saw Jack Black, talking about this, and the studio, he talks about this on in public, and they said, we want you to do this movie, and he said, no way, I'm not doing the movie. And they go, well, you have two options. You can do the movie and we pay you, or we're gonna AI you in the movie and you're not gonna get paid, but you're doing the movie. And he said, well, if I'm gonna be in the movie, I might also get paid for it. So he ends up doing movies that he didn't want to do because he's like, it was me or gonna be AI. So, if I'm trying to make a living at this, I might as well get paid for them using my image. And so we start, you have to start and think now, when actors start doing roles that are out of character for them. Like, let's say, you have, let's say hypothetically, like Nicolas Cage does all these like insightful movies or race car movies, and then all of a suddenly you see him in a religious film. And you're like, what? Why is Nicolas Cage in this religious film? That is really weird, and it doesn't really seem like him, but it's him. Well, congratulations, you may have just watched his AI self in a film that he was
or a
never in.
clone, or a clone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be AI nowadays, but also a clone.
And so that is the problem. And I admittedly, got on TikTok one night and was tired, and I started looking at some like movie trailers, and I was like, oh my God, they're making a movie out of this. This is so cool. And it's got these really big name actors in it. I can't wait for this. Oh, this is so cool. And I'd start to see more and more of those, trailers. And I'm sitting there, like getting really excited for this. And then I go and I type on my computer and I'm like, hey, when is this being released? And they're like, this isn't even in the making. And I'm like, ah, damn it. I fell for an AI, somebody made movie trailer.
Yeah,
And so I
I hate that.
noticed when I went to upload something the other day, I had to declare what is AI and what is real in the upload. And when I go on Amazon and when I publish my books, I have to declare, is there AI in the book? And I've started to notice in some books, they are sitting there saying, oh, this is AI generated
Yeah.
text or
Yeah.
AI this. And when you look at commercials now, they say you'll, on a lot of them, you'll start to see AI portrayed or
Yeah.
AI generated.
Right.
And so it's like we are being put in a world where, as hard as it was for us in like the 80s, 90s, and like a decade ago to determine the real world from the illusion world, they have now made it, like, in my opinion, like 1,000 times harder because it looks so real. Your mind goes into it. And
Yeah.
I know this isn't part of the topic, but I will not do virtual reality games.
Hmm.
And
I
I
won't
have
either.
a gamer's heart, but I will not put that visor on my head because that is beaming information into your
Yep.
mind and it's creating a simulation world to where when you take that off, the world looks the same. And so, how do you know when you've really taken the simulation goggles off versus
Right. I mean,
being in?
they even made a movie about that, right? Player
Right.
One.
And
What's
so,
it called? Ready Player One or something like that? Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
And
asking
well,
tech
and
support.
there's other movies too about it where
Yeah.
they are wearing these devices and people try to bring them out of it and they're like they won't go, they're like they won't go. If you bring us out, you're going to kill us because. And there's actually an anime that was created called Sword Art Online, and the premise of the show is the creator of the game put in the goggle system a device that injected itself into the brainstem, a
Oh,
link.
great.
And if you remove the headset without the person logging off, it'll kill them. Well, there's no way to log off. So and they finally start to announce the only way to log off of this game is someone has to win. And so the whole
Oh, wow.
premise of the anime is how do you win this game?
Yeah.
And relationships going along and you start to see people in their real essence where you have groups of characters that are just walking around doing nothing. You have groups of characters that will kill other characters to level themselves up and have no remorse about it. And then you have characters that are like trying to save everybody.
Right.
And so it's like it's really bringing out the dynamic of, you know, this is a virtual world that is now real and people can feel in these worlds. So how do you determine the real from the fake?
Yeah.
And
But also, I'm just going to interrupt you there for a minute. Also, it's a great way, if we want to transmute that energy, it's a great way to show humans that we do have this potential to be quote unquote superhuman, right? To embrace that notion because we can do really great things, you know, we can do pretty fantastic things, things that a lot of people can't even imagine that we can possibly do, including controlling time. I'm actually getting ready to do a whole big video deep dive on this where the CIA has known since the 30s and 40s through the beginnings of their MK Ultra projects was actually they were jumping timelines and shifting timelines and arranging timelines. these MK Ultra project people. Um, and of course they had the other stuff that they were doing with them too, but and that's the bulk of what people think of when they hear about MK Ultra. They don't realize that this was actually how our shadow government, shadow ops projects were actually manipulating time, was through those people. Because the human mind, the consciousness that comes with the human mind, has that capability to even alter time. And that's not just going back and forth in time. That is literally to freeze time or to speed it up. Like we can do those things, all the things that they talk about with alien abduction, right? Are things that we can do too ourselves.
Yeah.
We can swipe our own memory to forget if it's too scary for us to comprehend at the moment. We can go through a wall. I mean, my all-time favorite book is by a man named Robert Bach, and it's called Illusions. And he talks about how this teacher came to him. He was a small Indiana town boy, and this teacher came to him and taught him how matter is not a solid, that's just how we perceive it to be, and we command it to be, and that's what makes it solid. But if we command it to be liquid or something in between, we can also do that. Like, we can do incredible things with our consciousness because our consciousness is what creates. So in a lot of ways, these games are actually teaching the possibility if we want to transmute that energy instead of looking at the negative of it. And I'm all for agreeing with the negative parts of it too, because I'm not a gamer. I don't like those virtual realities. I don't like that kind of stuff at all. I want people to live more in this reality and to consciously create it, because we're creating every day anyway. But the majority of us right now are creating through loosh control, loosh technology, instead of using our consciousness to truly create the things that we want to create. Um, and I actually want to talk about like the prime directive versus free will and non-interference. And is humanity truly meant, in your opinion, to evolve without the outside interferences? How do you feel about that?
I think we need to, because when we think about it, we have on our planet systems that are in place that are unique to us. And one aspect of that is, we had forces bring in a moon that regulates our planet. The moon is not a natural object. It's been proven
Agreed. Yep. I agree with that.
through, you had the Zunis talking about pre-lunar civilization, the Greeks talking about it, the Romans talk about it, the Mesoamericans talk about it, indigenous tribes talk about it. So I make the argument you have Central America, North America, South America, Africa, Europe, which are not connected. They're not, we don't have the ability at this time to call up and say, hey, we're going to come out with this idea. You guys want to play along. And talking about these experiences of, I mean, the Zunis literally say they watch the moon be placed in their stories. And so, you know, it's hard to, sit there and go, oh, they made that up, because why would you make up putting an object in space that's regulates our world? And the fact that this object is the absolute perfect size to block out the sun when it's in that spot
Mhm.
completely.
Right.
It's the
Making a clip.
only solar object in our galaxy that
Mhm.
does it.
Right.
And
But may I
so,
ask what that has to do with the prime directive and free will and humanity evolving on their own?
Well, because where I'm going with it is, we need to understand and break out of believing the mold and believing what mainstream people have told us all of our lives and what society has told us, and we just blindly accept. And we have to start looking ourselves and going, what is this? Why do I believe this now? Where did this come from? Is this my own belief or is this something that someone told me? And in doing that, then we go into galactic. We can go galactic because we can take
Right.
ourselves out of thinking Earth realm to galactic realm. And so the free will is a program, in my opinion, that was written to be like the carrot that's dangled down in front of us. And it's a notion that we are like, oh, we don't have free will right now because this, and this is in play. Well, who said this is in play? When did we agree to this? And one primary example I'll say, to what I'm meaning by the free will is I was talking to a friend who's in mainstream religion, and I was looking at these signs that says I'm second. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? And he goes, "Oh, we're talking about the fact there's God, there's Jesus, and then there's us. We're second to Jesus." And I said, "I never agreed to that." And he
Yeah.
goes, "Well, what do you mean you never agreed to that?" I said, "I distinctly remember, the Bible, and I never really read the Bible cover to cover, but I remember there being something in the Bible of we are all the children of God. We're the
Yeah.
sons and daughters of God. So we are divine birthright."
Right. And
I
Jesus
never
Jesus
gave,
even said himself that he's no more the son of the Father than we are.
yeah. And so I said to him, I said, I never agreed to be second. I never gave up
Yeah.
my divine birthright. Nobody asked me.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean gave it up? I'm like, you just gave yours up by saying you're second.
Right. And a lot of people actually don't realize that they give up free will by just agreeing or conforming to whatever they're told. They don't realize that they had a free will choice in it at all, but they did. And
Right.
I think that's part of this whole great awakening is that people wake up to that realization that we do have a vote, we do have a choice in it. And if we say, no, I don't agree, to whatever it is, because they could tell you that tomorrow you're going to get a tornado, so be ready. And if you're just like, oh my God, we're going to have a tornado tomorrow, then you've agreed to having the tornado. Now, me, on the other hand, and I have taught this to my children, and it's even happened like live on the air where we had a tornado warning siren go off, and my children immediately park the storm and the tornado goes away because we don't agree to having the tornado. Do you see what I mean?
I
Like,
do.
we take back our power here.
And
We do not subscribe to just whatever they tell us is gonna happen. We don't say, "Oh, well, if it's God's will." We don't say, "Oh, it's just Mother Nature." None of that. Because what
yeah,
I learned in looking at the Gnostic texts and other ancient literature and wise philosophers is that we are truly the gardeners of this planet, and that means that we do command the weather, the earthquakes, everything. We can control them. But you have to have just not one person can do it. Maybe if it's a storm, yeah. But an earthquake, probably not necessarily because there's a lot more kinetic energy there. So you would need more people involved. And I think actually that's part of what the Atlanteans even knew in their own um, way of living is that they had domination over the whole planet, no matter what it was. and that if you command it and speak it into existence, then it shall be. And I think they showed that in Stargate with how the Atlanteans or the ancients in Stargate could control basically everything that they had. And then the offshoot faction of them had created like what do they call it? The nanotechnology people. Oh, replicators is what they were
Yeah.
called. And even some of the replicators were trying to figure out ascension so that they too could be in full control of what they were doing, right? Um, and I think those are great parallels between like Stargate and Star Trek and our reality here is that, I mean, we're in a matrix. We're in this movie, if you will, and we need to understand that we're not just characters in the movie, that we're actually the screenwriters, the directors, the editors. We're all of that. And to take back control of that.
Right. And the prime directive, like the one thing that I never agreed with when in Star Trek, the prime directive is, we can't interfere with the natural progression of cultures, but yet they will create holograms and hide behind holograms and watch and study these people. I'm like, that's interfering
Yeah.
because you are walking amongst them and cloaked. And that's what I loved about that one movie. I think it was Insurrection, is when the technology failed and they were exposed that they were spying on everybody, and they got called out on it and said, well, we're not supposed to interfere. And they said, so spying on us is okay? And he's like, well, yeah, I'm getting what you're saying. And we had to relook at, what that policy is. And how many times in all the shows and even in the rebooted series, it's like I always thought it was kind of a funny nod to the disclosure movement in the first Star Trek movie that Chris Pine did, where they're on the planet under the water, because when does a spaceship go underwater? And one person, Spock, is in the volcano trying to prevent an eruption. So that's interference. But they get called on because it starts erupting faster than Spock can manipulate. And he's either going to melt in the lava or they need to rescue him. And the shuttles can't fly because of the ash in the air. So he brings the ship out of the ocean and saves Spock, and they're called for breaking the prime directive of exposing space travel to a non-spatial culture. But did you notice the name of that culture? The Nibiruns.
Really.
Nibiru. And so that's
Never.
supposed to be our 10th planet, which
Right. And
is
which I
supposed to
firmly,
signal.
yeah, and I firmly believe it exists. I even believe we have a binary star that it orbits around. And
Yeah.
the maths for that. The math adds up for that. Um,
And so
but that's pretty interesting.
it doesn't always, work. And it doesn't always, and there always seems to be these gray areas where we do things and we feel like, oh, because we're not being witnessed, it's okay. It's like, no, you're interfering, whether you're witnessed or
Well, I
not.
mean, I don't maybe that is some kind of a loophole in it though, because like here on Earth, we have weather manipulation. I mean, that's a pretty well-known thing amongst us conspiracy-minded people now about the weather manipulation. And I mean, weather manipulation technology is not a conspiracy. That's a fact. It was
Yes.
created in what, the 40s or 50s or something, maybe even before that. But it was supposed to have been used for good, of course, and it isn't. It's used for nefarious purposes instead.
Right. We
Um,
have our weather wars.
yeah. But the thing is, with all of this technology that we have, number one, I want to say anything that we have that's technological, they got it from the human capabilities. And I'm still waiting for somebody to prove me wrong on that. Even the camera. Okay, the camera is made in the image of our eyes and how our eyes zoom in and zoom out, take pictures and all those things. The computer mimics our brain, right? Quantum physics is now proving that actually that the brain, the consciousness is the best quantum computer that possibly exists. But also back to the whole free will thing. Like say I'm part in a storm. I'm not part in a storm. I'm not changing people's free will um in the sense that it's bringing them harm, okay? But for people to understand that we have that ability and they're not ready to learn that. There might be something in the guidelines there for if I wasn't a human and I'm teaching that to other humans, that would break the whole prime directive free will narrative. Does that make sense?
It does, but at the same time, though, so first we have to actually define and look at what is free will because it's a concept we hear and everybody assigns certain definitions to it. And
That's
so
true. And they and
we,
then they have a lot of misconceptions about what that really is.
and
That's true.
like, I'm working on a book right now about death and the afterlife. And one of the things that I do as an author in my books with my experiences is in the beginning, I show where my research takes me and where my theories, come from. And the rest of the book is kind of follows that trajectory. So I started looking up, and when I looked up death, I go to the Cambridge Dictionary, UK's prime dictionary that they use for everything. That's their holy grail dictionary. I used America's Webster's Holy Grail dictionary, and I even found a, a, a site from the U.S. government's health department defining death. And each one of these sources had like 6 to 12 different answers as to what death was. And I comment on this and I go, it's a wonder this is such a mystery because we don't even have a clear definition. When you look at all of these different definitions, how do you know which one's the one that pertains to this event that you're about to experience? And I go, now, having a metaphysical background, what are the metaphysical definitions of death? Well, guess what? There's only one that I could find. And I did extensive search of trying to find others, and it was like, nope. They would say it a little bit differently, but it would always be the same concept. And they go, metaphysics takes and borrows from yoga the art of transforming one stasis to another. And so death is a transformation of one aspect of life to another. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's it. That's the definition. And I was like, yeah, that's the part that I grew up with and that I experienced and that I resonate with. And I thought one day, because I went to my hairstylist to have, because I had an appointment, and I kind of bounce ideas off of him. And I said to him, you know, if I told you death could be explained in 12 different ways, and just to give you an idea, one of the very, extensive definitions of death is slaughter. Would you want that? And he goes, no, I don't want slaughter. And I go, so what if I told you a definition of death is you're transitioning from one form to another? He goes, I like that. I want that one. I want that definition. And I was like, yeah, so people, don't realize, the choices that are out there of what to believe and everything. And it's no wonder we get scared of certain ideas because they fill us with so many different deals that we are like, no idea. Even though we have a simple, we are of the mindset of, oh no, that's too simple to go from one form to another. It's got to be more complicated. So that's not going to work. And it's like that's the problem with the world. And what I'm tying this all into is, when we get to free will, we define it as, the right to make a choice, the right to choose something.
Right.
But that's not really free will,
Right.
because free will was, we were born into free will, but it was taken from us and we were programmed to pay to live in a world we were born on and pay to live on. And we are always, no matter what we do, we are in a system of, as free as we think we are, there's still aspects of us that are in the program. And
Right.
so when we talk about, like, free will of, I want the freedom to choose this, or this, well, the problem with that, in my opinion, is my right to choose is my right. It is a divine birthright. But how do I know what I'm choosing? How do I know the, one choice over another? Because all my choices are being laid out for me based on the program. And so, can we ever truly be free? That's why I say, I don't know that we would ever really know free will when it's handed to us, because we have been brought up and programmed so deeply that when we even think we're doing free will, we're not. I mean, look at, mentalism.
Right.
Mentalists can make you pick a card, one out of 52, and they just fan it out and they're like, pick a card. And you're sitting there going, oh, yeah, I'm at free will because I can take this one. I can take from
Well,
here. I can take from here. But your mind's being guided. You just
but in
don't
my
realize
opinion,
it.
yeah, in my opinion, that's not really free will. That's not a good definition of free will, picking the card, because the mentalist is actually using the odds of probability in their favor,
Well,
right?
but
They're focusing, it's like the double blind experiment. They're
yeah,
focusing on that intention to happen, and so that is more likely the intention that will happen. And the better they get at it, then the more
right.
reliable
But
that outcome
yeah,
becomes.
I wasn't saying that the card deal was the definition of free will. I was
Yeah.
saying it's an example of where we think we're at free will, but we're
Yeah,
really
but I think
not.
that's what I'm yeah, but that's what I meant when I said that people don't really understand what the concept of free will really
Yeah,
is. Because we definitely can manipulate each other's minds in that sense. And I think in that sense, maybe that's not so much a true free will definition, because we are all co-creators. So we have that ability to help influence one another in one direction or another.
And we also had the notion of guides and guardian angels and
Yeah.
spirits that are helping us and they're nudging us. And so we have the proverbial angel on our shoulder whispering, do this, go here, do this. And so that's where I say, where we feel like because I'm going over this way, am I really going over this way because it's what I want? Or am I
Well, I
listening to
mean,
this voice that's telling me to go that way?
but you just answered your own question. Because if you're listening to the voice, you still make the choice to listen to the voice, right? It's still free will. Free will
Well,
is free will is in our choices.
right, but I
And
mean, I could also argue though,
we allow things and people to influence our choices. And
yeah,
that's I think that is where the loophole is in like the dark forces in this spiritual war where they aren't breaking the rules, so to speak, of free
right,
will and the prime directive because it's no different than the Native American stories of the coyote or the trickster, right? And in the Bible we have the devil, right? So these are those influences, those temptations or those nudges, and not all of them have to be negative even. Some of them can be very positive, a type of nudges or trying to influence.
right,
But it's still our choice at the end of the day. You know, you can't say the devil made me do it because you're the one that did it, right? You're the one that chooses it. And I think
right,
that's what people need to really understand about free will is that it is bottom line our choice that we did it or not. So
right,
do you trust intuition and that voice or do you trust um other noises and other things that are influencing you, right? Like you said, the angel on your shoulder. Well, you've also got a devil on your shoulder, right? So which wolf are you feeding? The way the Native Americans would say it, you know,
right. And
which wolf do you feed?
in that aspect, I would say that is free will because you're making the choice fully informed of both
You don't
or
have to be
all
fully no,
possibilities.
you don't have to be fully informed to be making the choice, and you're still giving up your free will. No different than anything else, right? Like I use the example of the storm or the tornado. If people just surrender to that and they're just like, well, we're fucked tomorrow, there's going to be a tornado. They just gave up any type of free will they may have had in that experience or that event happening. And we do that so often, not even realizing that we have a choice. And I think that's the real importance of the awakening. It's not just the truths out there that we've been lied about. It's the truths about what's in here that we've been lied
Right.
to about. Because
And
we have so much more power and so much more control over our choices and free will than people honestly realize.
that's true. And, I have actually an example of tornadoes myself to where then this is actually a true story. It was actually documented on the news, not my part in it, but the event where there was a lot of heavy wind and I opened the front door because my mom and I were curious and both of us had to push the door closed to get it to close and we kind of could hear the freight train and so we're like what is going on? And I looked at my mom and I was like, I don't know, but I'm feeling tired. I'm gonna go lay down and go to sleep. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. And so she's laying on the other side of the house and she starts to get nervous and is like, oh my God, I think I need to go wake everybody up. And goes, no, I'm not going to wake everybody up. And she tells me in the morning 9 tornadoes went right by our house. Not a single one actually touched our neighborhood. They were on the other side of a brick wall, actually. And the news even documented 9 tornadoes were overnight in this one area. and I slept through it all.
Yeah.
And where I'm kind of going with this is because I didn't have awareness of the tornadoes, they didn't come into my environment. And so there is, you know, sometimes when we watch the news and watch the weather and they say, oh, this is coming, or, take shelters, this is happening. We're going and now we're bringing into our awareness, like you said, oh,
Yeah.
this is coming now. So they're
Yeah.
bringing it. Where if you don't listen to
Right.
that,
And that's
it doesn't
actually
happen.
that that was my point to the whole we control how powerful or effective the hurricane or whatever can be, because take Japan's Fukushima tsunami.
Yeah,
People watch that on live TV. The tsunami that hit Indonesia in 2004, we watched that on live TV coming in, right? And everyone watching, that's those odds of probability of the eyes on it, right? The double split experiment again. The more people you have focused on those events with fear or definite opinion that this is going to really hurt a lot of people, then that really hurts a lot of people. But if we were all to watch it knowing our power, we could have sent the waves back. We could have calmed the waves. We could have spared those people by
yeah,
watching it. And I think even the news or the weather, well, the news in general, but especially the weather, someone at the top understands that. They don't necessarily need weather manipulation technology to control the masses and the collective consciousness's focus in a fear-based way, and then bad things happen to places. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
It does. And, a good example I'm kind of reminded of what we're kind of talking about is I don't know if you remember the movie We Are Soldiers about Vietnam.
Mm-mm.
There's a scene where they're training and they're going to be because of the terrain, they're having to use helicopters. So they're training their troops to fight by landing, jumping off the helicopters, going right into action, and they're being trained to fight this scenario. Well, all of these soldiers are like trying to vision what it's going to be like, and they have no idea. And they are like, the commanding officer would come up and tap someone on the shoulder and go, he's dead. Who, what do you do? Well, you stuttered and didn't take, you took too long. You're dead. What are you going to do? Everybody has to know what to do. But they can't fathom this because it's not in their reality. And all of a suddenly, they start hearing gunfire and people screaming. And they had this horror look. And the commanding officer walks over to the radio guy and goes, what is this? And he goes, well, I think we're getting radio signals from Vietnam being bounced off the atmosphere, and our radio system picked it up. Let me take it off. And he goes, no, leave it. And they're all sitting here listening to the horror of what's going on over there. And every one of those soldiers, it's like you could see in their faces going, this is what we're going into now. That's going to be us. And their whole mindset changed. Their whole training methods
Mhm.
changed because now they were aware
Right. That sounds
of
like psychological
reality.
warfare.
But and it was all done by accident. And he's like, you're going to be my weather guy, or my radio guy, because you figured out how to pick up the radio, the atmospheric bounce.
Right.
But think of the gift, though, that those soldiers were given because they were going in somewhat already mentally battle hardened because of that radio incident and going, I'm not going in and it's going to be, oh, these people, that, we're being told are backwards fighters and this will all be over quickly. No, we're going into a fight for our lives. And that's
Right.
literally what they did. And
Right.
they handled the stress better, I think, somewhat than other units because of that pre-exposure.
They were aware of that ahead of time. Yeah. Um, I've never seen that movie, but little sidebar fact here. I have a brother-in-law who did 2 tours in Vietnam, and both times he was the only one of his platoon that survived, because it was so crazy and horrendous. But the Vietnam thing actually parallels into the Stargate show,
It does.
um, because they show a similar scene where we were using UFO technology. Um, how did that go exactly? It was like people in Vietnam were actually had the UFOs or whatever, and that was really why we went in to get the UFOs, retrieve the UFOs, or something had crashed there or whatever it was. Do you
So
remember that episode?
I do, and the part that I haven't heard about, them going for UFOs, but I've heard of cases where special forces were in the jungles and they were fighting non-human entities in the jungles along with the Viet Cong, and that's what was driving them to be like psychologically so damaged because how do you come back? I mean, seeing your friend die, that is horrible in itself. Not going to dispute that. I mean, World War One and Two taught us that.
Right,
But how do you go and say, I had to kill a 9 foot tall being that was trying to kill me and took
right,
out two of my teammates, or there was this creature that's running around on 2 legs, but is something like out of mythology attacking us in the jungles. It's like, how do you? And I think that's kind of what scarred them even more is we knew that was there and sent them anyway. And we're like, you guys are the creme de la creme. You go take care of this. We're going to operate over here and we're going to, we'll intermingle, but this mission is classified. You can't talk about this to anybody. And they probably were like, a lot of them were probably like gun ho, like, oh yeah, we're gonna go sneak up on old Charlie over there, and we're gonna give him a run for his money. And yeah, I can see why this is classified. Ha ha ha. And then when they came back, you saw them like, yeah, these were the steadiest people, but their hands are shaking. And
right,
there were reports of even special forces in Afghanistan who they would always be walking around with their guns pointed up, and people were going, oh, that's because that way they don't friendly fire somebody because they had their fingers on the triggers. No, it's if you ask them, it's because that's where the head of their target was, and they had to fire at that angle to drop it before it dropped them. And so it begged the question of, so they're fighting giants in Vietnam and Afghanistan, so giants are still
mhm.
around.
Yeah, I
But
fully believe that the giants are still around, and a lot of people know about, like, the giant of Gandahar. But also, I know people personally and have had whistleblowers talk to me about, Desert Storm, our war of Desert Storm, and, how there were triangled UFOs coming in and landing. Like they would
Oh,
be behind like a barricade watching the enemy and see the black triangles come in and land. And
so
it like broke their psyche. It rocked their
yeah,
world because a lot of those people had never believed in UFOs before until
yeah,
then, you know.
and
And I do believe that a lot of our quote unquote wars or missions have to do with collecting ancient artifacts and these type of technologies. I mean,
well,
even current whistleblowers are coming out and saying that we had the psionics programs where they would call in the UFO so that they could take it, you know. And
right.
so that actually leads me to my next question that I want to ask because Star Trek and Stargate both had a lot of the shadow government op type programs going on. And even for us here on Earth, we have Men in Black, which I think are actually two factions. I think there's good guy Men in Black, and I think there's bad guy Men in Black.
Oh
And
yeah,
then different factions of the CIA that are like rogue and stuff. Not that the CIA as a whole is a bunch of dirty bastards, but they could be. I could be wrong on that. But my question here is when do you personally think that secrecy becomes justified? And when is it dangerous? When does it become dangerous?
I think it's justified if so. Let's say look at 1947 Roswell. You have a strange craft that crash landed in your territory, but you have nothing that can knock it down. And you just are getting off of World War II, where, the world was at war. So everyone's a little bit traumatized from the war, not fully back at peace yet with reality and healed all those wounds. And then you're going to throw at them, hey, we have craft in our airspace that we can't stop. That's going
Right.
to throw into hysteria. I get
Right.
that.
I do too. I do too.
But
You don't want to tell your whole country or the whole world for that matter that we can't control these mofos. That would send everybody into mass
yeah,
panic.
but where to me it becomes harmful is let's take, and look at, let's say, 1995. Let's say a UFO comes in and crashes in Utah, for example, hypothetically. Well, we're not at a world war. We're not at a point where we're at a hair's trigger from, going to war with someone. And
Yeah.
if we were to say, hey, we had an object crash land in this state that's unidentifiable, we're looking into it, I don't think there would be as much hysteria.
I don't either. I
But
think they should
the
tell the truth about shit like that.
yeah, but the problem is the people that made the call in 1947
Yeah.
are still the ones in power in
Yeah.
1990s, and so they're
Right.
living the same program
Right.
of we can't
We
tell the
can't tell the
people,
public. It's not safe. They're
it's
not ready.
we can't control
Yeah.
our airspace.
It's gonna wreck Christianity and religion, and it's gonna wreck the economics. That was Trump's
Yeah,
question. Did you know that?
yeah.
And I'm a Trump supporter, but that pissed me off that he asked his economic top guys, "What's this gonna do to the economy if we tell people?" Like, what?
Well,
What?
because so
I
the
mean, I guess I
problem
get
now,
it, but still.
but you got to look at the problem now today is I would question exposing it myself today because look at the way our country is right now. We have politicians that can't even answer what gender they are. That's the
Yeah,
ludicrousy of
I know,
what we're living in.
I know.
And so if you were to
They can
take
identify as a
that
cat or a
fanatical,
dog.
and go, now we're going to mention, UFOs flying in our airspace that we can't stop. They're going to take and run it in a totally way that's going to electrify the planet and going, oh my God, and put the whole world at a state of, are we going to be invaded? Mass hysteria.
Well, I
The
mean, we
War of the
already have,
Worlds.
yeah, we've
Type.
already got people doing that. People that, I mean, freaking JD Vance. He's the VP and he's out there telling people that aliens are demons. Like, shame on him for saying that.
Well,
Shame on him. They are not
yeah,
all demons. They're not all the fallen angels. And we're not even right on the story of the fallen angels for that matter. They lied about that because those mofos are actually aliens who came here. That's not fallen angels. They
yeah.
lied about the whole story.
No, yeah, I know. And we're living in a world right now to where we have been so programmed and so ingrained, not to trust or not believe that
Yep.
if a UFO was to land in, say, Kansas and go, hey, we just, we're stopping by and we noticed you're, struggling with this and, can we help? There would be two sides of people meeting them. The people that are like, oh my God, you're invading our space. We need to take you down. And the other side is people who are going to be like, oh my God, you're our savior. You are totally, here to help us. Take
Mhm.
us with you. Get us out
Right.
of here. And
Right.
both of those are wrong.
Yeah, because we are who we've been waiting for.
And
Not
so,
not anything outside of ourselves or our planet. It's
yeah.
us. We are
And
who we've been waiting for.
until we learn to control our emotions, and I don't like the
Mhm.
word control, but not
But
be
I
driven
mean,
by our emotions. That's a
right,
better way to put it.
right.
Then we'll be ready for meeting our galactic brothers again. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that will ask me, do you think it's right that they keep us out of the outer space and traveling the stars? And I kind of laugh at him and I'm like, absolutely right they are. I'm like, these people most likely, and this may be, just my own panacea, but these people are traveling the stars, trading, living peaceful life. And then you're like, hey, we're bringing the Earthlings over. And what are the Earthlings? We're like, hey, we're going to either kill you, we're going to worship you, or we're going to bring war to your planet. We're going to bring all these
Well, I
divisive,
mean, I
two
get your I get your
cycle.
yeah, I get your point there, but I also do not believe that that's the truth all the way around. Number 1, I think that humanity as a whole are better people than we give them credit for. Yes, there's a lot of great technologies that are created that we start out using them for good and then they get weaponized. I'm not arguing with that. I'm not arguing that there's bad factions, but humanity as a whole is a lot better of a species than we give them credit for because we've been programmed to think that way, right? That we're just
Well, yeah,
of the
and
reptilian mind. Second of all, we actually do travel beyond the stars, and I know that for a fact.
oh yeah.
There are other whistleblowers who could also testify to that. We have stargates, we have jump rooms, we have the ability to travel. We do trade with other planets and other civilizations all over our galaxy and probably beyond. I know this for a fact. So we're not being earthbound trapped. That's the narrative that they want to feed to people so that they don't understand that all of this stuff is going on because actually the bad guys are the ones that are using it, the
Yeah,
nefarious
but
ones.
what
But
where I was
they're no
going with it,
different. They're no different than the reptilian or Dracos, which are the type of species that goes around trying to take over planets all the time. They're very warmongering type beings. So if it was a true story that Earthlings can't leave and travel to different places until we learn how to put on our big boy pants, then how come the reptilians can do it? Because they are on our planet. So I think that's a lie, honestly.
Well, where I was actually going and the conclusion to what I was
Sorry, I
saying
interrupted you.
was
I get passionate.
that um it makes you, and I sit there and I say to people, as a star seed in those moments looking at that, I'm like, yeah, this planet is doomed. As a species, we are doomed because of
I
this.
disagree.
But then you see one person does something out of the ordinary, out of the blue, and it's like, wait a minute. That is humanity. That
Yeah.
is what's going out into space. That's the spark that makes us go, that's the human essence, human
Yeah.
spirit. That's what's going out into the universe.
Right.
And so there is hope for humanity, and we
100%.
aren't doomed like they're telling us. And
100%.
so it's a
I
matter
mean,
of, you have to look at it and go, okay, where is this? Where am I at in the narrative story? Am I in their agenda or am I in mine? And
right.
in mine, yes, we are traveling the stars. Yes, we are, probably way out in the universe and multiverse than we realize. And I was listening to a presentation by a gentleman who's, says that he was brought up through the programs. And he was saying in his presentation, he goes, you know, if you really want to make a lot of money out there in the galactic market, keep all your old clothes, keep your band shirts because they don't know who Nirvana is or some, random band name, but they buy it up because it's from Earth and
That's
they'll pay
funny.
top dollar. And he goes, and you can go into bars and say, what's your top shelf beer? I'll drink one of those. And it's like our lowest beer here on the planet. So he's like, make yourself, figure out how to micro brew in your house beer and box it up and ship it out galactic. And you can
That's
make
funny.
money being top shelf
Mhm.
products at the low end on our scale. And I'm like, and I'm laughing at this and going, it's so funny that, we have people that tell us like, oh, the other species out there, and when I say species, I'm talking about, star beings, look at Earth and are going, oh, they are so far behind us. And then you hear him saying they want to buy all of our stuff.
Right.
And I take the middle ground actually of I heard this once and I don't know who said it, but it has resonated and stuck with me that Earth as a planet is a school. We are all here from different cultures, different star races, and I know that's gonna kind of make people feel uneasy, because they're like they don't want to believe in star seeds, but I'm like, sorry, everybody here's a star seed.
Yeah.
But we're here to learn things here that we can't learn on our worlds that we come from or the energy dimensions that we come from. So we're learning them here to take it back and share. And we made the choice to come here to learn through all of this. And that's where a lot of people are like, oh, I'm in line with the, being a school. I'm in line with this, but I am not in line that I signed up to go through this shit show that we're in right now and this
Yeah.
time. And it's like, yeah, you actually did. I hate to tell you. And
Yeah, but I think some, like starseeds that volunteered to be here for the Great Awakening and help humanity to evolve. I think that we came from a higher density where we had already went through Earth reincarnation lessons, and we volunteered to come back down to this lower, heavier density. And then when you don't, well, I think whether you remember it or not, it's hard. This is a icky soup of an energy to work through because of all the bombardment, because of all the noise that's here.
well, and
And so
also,
it's like putting your training wheels back on again, even though you know how to ride the damn bike,
yeah,
right? You
and
gotta kinda start over and work your way back up and hopefully not spend your entire lifetime getting there to
yeah, and
remember your mission,
I'm
you know?
about to make a statement, but before I make the statement, I feel obligated and out of awareness for the world we live in, a nice little disclaimer to this statement, and that is I am not a doctor. I am not medically affiliated. So, what I'm about to say is
Yeah.
my personal awareness from my personal experiences and is not recommended for everyone to stop what they're doing and do what I do or what I experienced. And so, with that being said, my experience and my witnessing is a lot of star seeds were awakened, but they were awakened in a time and a place ahead of schedule, so to speak. And so they were misunderstood and drugged up and pretty much, I almost would venture to say, tortured by being like locked up or teased and ridiculed to the point that they just gave up the knowledge that they had and said, "Nope, it's not worth it. I can't live like this. This isn't what I agreed to. This isn't how it was supposed to be." And we lost that knowledge and that part of the awakening. But now, the times being what they are now, that people are starting to, you know, the word, starseed is in normal language now. The word UFO is in normal language now. Hybrid is normal language. It's not no
Yeah.
more the I'm putting my life at risk by saying this word because the
Yeah.
connotation that comes with it. Now, we're not 100% there, so don't, if you're being ridiculed, don't, sit there and say, wait a minute, I am. I know there still are small pockets of people who will ridicule you,
Yeah,
but
and
there's also
I just wanna
pockets that will
interject
support. And
I wanna
so,
interject
before you
something real
do,
quick.
though, I just want to say that we are making advances. Disclosure is happening. It is going on. It just doesn't look like what we thought it would look like. So that's why a lot of people don't see it.
Right. Right, and I personally think that we, the people that are the experiencers, are gonna be the main disclosure anyway, not governments or corporations. But I just
Mhm.
wanna address real quick, you talking about the star seeds that we lost. Um, I personally have always felt like even if we had a contract to come here that we agreed to, free will is still at play. And if we feel like we can't handle it, we have the right to say, no, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, even if that means they check out in whatever way that means. And
Right.
a lot of them, you're right, we lost them to drug addiction, alcoholism, and some even from just totally taking their self out of the game, unfortunately. And we can't be mad at them for it. We have to understand with compassion, this is a heavy soup of energy to deal with, and we all seem to have been dealt a really bad hand of cards, so to speak, a really suck ass hand. And it is what you make of it. And if you can't make the best of it, then that's not your fault. We don't blame them. I'm not saying you blame them either. But I just wanted
Right.
to address that because that is a really big deal for me that we lost a lot of really beautiful souls that were here to help, and they just couldn't do it. They just could not do it, you know?
And one thing too I want to point out is we growing up, and I'm not even gonna pretend to know, like, I know you don't know my age, I don't know your age. I'm not, playing the ageism card in this scenario, but when we were growing up, we didn't have outlets to talk to about things, to help us
Right,
process things.
right.
So we either rose to the occasion and, put it underground, so to speak, and waited until the support was there, but we
Yeah,
kept doing it. We just weren't public about it.
right.
And there are those that were like, yeah, nope, I'm out. And yeah, there's no faulting that. And
Yeah,
there is no blame, like you're saying. But the time that we're in now, it feels so exciting to people because it's like we're all talking about this new age, this new awakening, this new wisdom and everything. But in reality, there's nothing new about it. It's always
yeah,
been here.
yeah.
It's just we're now tuning into it. And
I
I
actually
love when
say
this
that to people.
happens, that I had this really awesome train of thought and it has left the station and I
Oh,
have
shit.
no idea where I
Alright.
was going with that.
Okay, so let me take over for a minute while that comes back to you because there are so many people that have said to me, "Oh, you're one of those new age people." And I'm like, "Dude, there ain't nothing I'm talking about that's new age. This is old school. This is like old, old school. This is like the original OG of old school, all the way back to like Jesus and biblical days, old school, like way back, and probably even beyond him, really, to be honest."
Yeah,
Um, I'm just trying to help bring back the old ways of doing and thinking and being. You know, there ain't nothing new age about this. I'm not one of those kumbaya, we're all gonna sit around the fire and live under the rainbows and the puppy dog tails and the bunny rabbits and the unicorns and all that bullshit. I'm not one of them people. I'm very realistic about this. I'm very down to earth. And every single one of us, star seeds, we had very lonely childhoods. And you're
oh
right.
yeah,
We had no outlet. We had no group. We had nobody to talk to. Our friends and our family were the closest things to us, and they thought we were effing nuts.
yeah.
You know,
And
like, I'm lucky because my dad, being who he was in some of his, shadow op stuff, he knew what the hell I was talking about, and so he let me talk to him. He was the one I could talk to, and my brother, because my brother was going through the same shit, he was experiencing things, and he was in the know about all of it, so I had him too, but I'm the last child of 7, right? So everybody in my family thought I was a cuckoo. Even my own mother thought I was cuckoo, right? She just would, like, entertain me for humor's sake sometimes, but we're all very lonely. My friends didn't get it. Here I was thinking we could all see dead people and talk to them, until I realized that my friends didn't know what the hell I was talking about,
oh
you
yeah,
know? And and I could see things in the sky that other people couldn't see, and I never could understand that. Like, how even in my 30s, my husband at the time, he's standing right next to me out in the yard, and I'm looking straight at this UFO that I can clear as day see as a UFO, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see a thing." And I took a photo of it, and it showed up in the photo. And I'm like, "Why couldn't he see it?" But
because
I think now,
filters.
yeah, I think now it's got something to do with filters, right? Are you open-minded enough to see it or not? Because he was super skeptical, still is
Well,
to this
I,
day.
I was
He's a
taught
super
by
skeptical person.
a spiritual person this story, and it's a beautiful way to explain how our filters work. And the story goes, so you have 15 people in a building, because they told different numbers, but I'm not a math person, so I make it simple. So you got 15 people. Five people go outside and are like, nothing's out there. So they go home. They're like, no big deal. Five people go out there and they go, there's something fuzzy above the parking lot. I can't quite make it out, but it's probably a trick of the eye and nothing's really there. And so maybe two of them go home, three are really curious and going, I don't know, that doesn't seem natural, but it doesn't seem unnatural. It's got me curious. Well, at this point, the other five walk out and they're like, dude, look at the UFO. That is really cool. Oh, look, someone's coming out to say hi. What was the difference of all the people? Their filters. You
Yeah.
cannot see what you were
Yes.
not prepared to see.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that is why you can, another way to look at it is, you drop someone in a room full of people and you watch and everybody segregates into the collective of we're like-minded, we can
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
We're
This
like-minded,
this
we
filter
can
group
talk.
is here. That filter group is over there. Yeah. It kind of
And
like when sorry, kind of like when the kids in in the school in Africa saw the UFO, right? And they interviewed the kids and the teachers and stuff, and the teachers didn't see it. They didn't see the little beings. They didn't see
yeah,
the UFOs, but all of the children recounted the same type of sightings and interactions and stuff. And I'm like, that's because the child's lens doesn't have the filters yet,
yeah,
right?
and as tying it back to like Star Trek and Stargate, and science fiction, I was talking with a group of beings and I starting to get this message from a lot of them. And that is we are in a world to where if you dream it, you think it, it is.
Yeah.
And I said, and I was like, kind of like, hey, can you clarify that, for people who may not understand the level at what we're talking about? And I said, so if I look at say Johnny Quest, cartoon from the 1960s. I'm talking about the 60s version.
Okay.
They had mole men. They had ant men that looked humanoid but half insect. And I think the mole men actually might have been Fantastic Four in the 60s cartoon. But I was saying to them, hey, was this disclosure, meant to happen, or how did this happen? And they said this was not their doing. They did not bring about this disclosure, but they said whoever was writing that show obviously met Ant-Man or met Mole Man to write it into their show, their cartoons to make it real because I mean like Johnny Quest, I remember the ant people. They were bipedal and they had little clamps like claws and their heads were like the head of an ant with antenna. And I was like, that is really kind of interesting. That's the portrayal they made them instead of like actual ants walking on two legs like you would think. So people would go, that's an ant-man. And these ant beings that we were talking with said, we are actually more human form than insectoid form. So that is interesting that this cartoon, portrayed us that way. And yeah, we must have met this person or seen this person in passing and left a mark that they were like, ooh, this is how I'm going to portray him because it's more real than it's not real. And I started looking, and going, and I'm finding myself as I'm entering into the awareness of, lifting the veil and saying, what has been in front of us that we have missed all these, decades, and looking at a lot of cartoons and going, oh my God, this was in front of us and we didn't know this. And here's a really great example of this. You know how Trump brought about Space Force and, created Space Force. He actually didn't. I found in the 1980s was a cartoon literally titled U.S. Space Force.
Yeah, it was actually Reagan. He was bringing back what Reagan did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the term Space Force, where they were
Hmm.
operating in space,
Right.
that idea was never really out there until Trump brought it up, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's created this," and I was like,
Right.
"No, actually, we had awareness of this long time ago." And I had the feeling when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, he is taking something that's been in operation, but making it public eye.
Yeah.
He's taking something covert and making it overt." And when came across the cartoon, it's like my mind was like, here's proof of this. Because, cartoon, how did these, developers and, writers write a show, Spacecom, U.S. Space
Hmm.
Force or Space Command, and
Right.
be like the exact title that we're using today?
Right. Yeah, he was just telling about stuff that already existed all the way back to like Solar Warden in
Yeah.
World War II and stuff,
But
you know.
yeah, and so that's where, it's like, when people are like complaining this disclosures, taking too long. Well, the current movie, yes, I will agree, is taking too long and it's kind of becoming, are we ever going to end this movie? Versus the disclosure part. Oh, that's been around for decades in our TV and everything. Now that I go back and look at it, I start to see the synchronicities of it. And one of my favorite shows, sorry, I keep bumping my mic, is Battlestar Galactica. And it's a show about 12 colonies that are fighting cybernetic robots that were created by humans that have turned against their human creators and are trying to annihilate what they call the human race.
Right.
Well, one of the planets is Caprica.
Right.
Capricorn,
Right.
12 zodiacs.
Yeah.
The ships, there's the Atlantean, the Galactica, they're all named from our mythologies.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing is we look at ourselves as being the main colony and we're wanting to go out into space to colonize, and meet our galactic brothers. Well, Battlestar Galactica kind of flipped that notion on its back and said, here we are colonies of Earthlings, but we lost our connection with them. And
Right.
so the premise of the show is we're going to Earth to rejoin our brethren and they can help us fight off these robotics entities that we created. Well, they do end up finding Earth, and they do call Earth the Lost Colony, which is the 13th colony. Well, we had 13 months, went to 12. And so there's all these little intertwined connections you can start to find and make. And it's like, wait a minute. If this is, a reality, how about this as a reality? Can we bring this about? Oh, can't, what about this? Well, and I never really liked the way the original Galactica ended, and then they brought it back in the 80s with the okay, we're operating on Earth, but Earth wasn't what we thought it was, and we gotta try and raise them up to help us because now we brought an enemy to their doorstep. And that show had its interesting run, but where I'm gonna go now is the newer version. The very last episode to me was like the greatest disclosure moment ever witnessed on TV. It shows one of the cybernetics in human form because they figured out how to make themselves human in this version with the guy who betrayed everybody but is this master scientist always thinking, and it shows them walking on Earth, and the time lapse starts to go where they're walking when the dinosaurs are there. Then all of a sudden, civilizations start to rise and fall, and here they are in modern time, and they just keep walking and talking, and they're talking about like awareness and how is are they ready for this or that. And the beauty of the disclosure that I say in that moment is they're showing they were with us from the very beginning of our quote existence,
Yeah.
walking through with us, watching us
Yep.
grow and fall and participate and not participate. And it really to me was like, look, people, we can no longer say we developed on our own. We had no help because there are just so many mysteries on our planet that are
Yeah.
beyond explanation. And that's why I find it interesting, in Star Trek and Stargate is, when cultures meet us, they're not always like meeting us at gunpoint and saying, who are you? What are you doing here? What are you bringing? A lot of them are like, hey, you have
Yeah.
this knowledge now. You have this technology now. We
Yeah.
have this technology. Can we trade? Can we share? And we grow and we become, our galactic brethren. And
Right.
we become a force of change in the universe. And it's I think it's because we do have that spark, that adaptation, that ability to, like, I would say almost like, one of my favorite lines in Tron Evolution is where Jeff Bridges' character is kneeling on the deck of a ship as they're going towards the portal to go home, and the special character Olivia Wilde, I forget what she was called, but Jeff Bridges' son is, talking with her, and he's like, "What's he doing?" And her answer is, "He's knocking on heaven." And I was
Mm.
like, that is was such a beautiful moment, and I think it went over so many people's heads because it's like, yes, he's reading what's going on, what's happening everywhere in this creation in a single moment everywhere. And analyzing what's coming, because the very next scene is you see his alter ego that's perfection, and he doesn't seem surprised to see him. It's more like he was expecting to walk into him. And they had this dialogue that I think also goes over people's head. And Clue was his alter ego. And he goes, "Did I not create the perfect system?" And he goes, "You did." "Well, why are you fighting me and trying to destroy the perfection that we created?" And he goes, "Just did. I couldn't create perfection because I didn't know perfection. The perfection that we created isn't perfection. There's more to it. And these, gifts that were coming in that we viewed as not perfect, that were flaws, were perfect in their way. And it was breaking down the system because he was like, "No, I'm programmed only perfection can exist." Because that's where he was, and that's not where he is now, and that's where the rub was. And so that's a moment where I think that's where we're seeing humanity is. We all want to be the perfect human, but we don't understand perfection, so we can't create it, because the second we think we have it, there's something to show us no we don't.
Yeah.
And it frustrates us, where
Yeah.
instead it should inspire us. And that's what I think the movie was trying to show us, is he went from the frustrated version and trying to eliminate the flaw to embracing the flaw and being like, "Ooh, what's this flaw gonna bring us in this world?"
Right. Yeah, and I think that people shouldn't necessarily strive for perfection, just improvement. That way they don't have the same kind of pressure, right?
Well, but that depends, because I actually had a moment of clarity in my late 20s, and it still sticks with me. And I said, we look at words like impossible, I'm possible. So
Mhm.
perfection, why is perfection a word that we can't make into something else? And then I was like, well, wait a minute. What is perfection? And I sat there and I was like thinking to myself, and I was like, well, and I look down and I look at my desktop or a countertop, and it feels smooth. But when you take a microscope to it, it is anything but smooth.
Right?
And I'm like, "Oh, but what's the lingo? Oh, this countertop or this cabinet or this desktop is perfectly smooth." But it's not. It's flawed on a micro level. And I go, "But wait a minute. I am accepting that this desktop is perfectly smooth, flawed and all. Wait a minute. What if I look at myself and I go, where am I right now? Well, I'm my perfect self. Well, but I'm flawed. That's why I'm my perfect self. I can see my flaws, but I can see beyond my flaws." And so I
Mm.
then started to go, well, what about in the world? And I started to realize, in everywhere I was looking, I was like, that is perfect, because I'm not limiting myself to the fact that it's flawed and therefore not perfect. I'm seeing it beyond the flaw and looking beyond the flaw to see it for what it truly is. And to me, I was like, that is perfection, is to see and accept what you're seeing, but see it beyond what you're seeing. Like, we see trees,
Yeah. The awareness of being aware. Yeah.
right?
It's a
I mean,
beautiful thing.
look at like tree trunks. We look at trees and we're like, how beautiful are they? You get up close and all these barks are different pieces, and it's like it's anything but smooth looking and pretty looking. It looks like a bunch of puzzle pieces just got slapped on somewhere and was like, hey, we're done with this.
Right.
But when you stand back, you're like, how beautiful is it? So
Right.
that's what I'm meaning when I say, you see the flaws and look beyond is I can look up close and still see the beautiful tree, not the hodgepodge of mismatched pieces that doesn't look like it fits. So yeah, that's the example of where I go and I say perfection is possible.
Yeah. We have a question from someone in the chat that wants to know what ET groups you have encountered.
Wow. I have encountered, let's see, mantis beings, and I've encountered ant beings, I've encountered lyrans, felines, avians, Palladians, Andromedans, Arcturians. Um, I've met Wendigos, which I know are technically cryptid, but I don't know. So I'm kind of starting to think, can some of these cryptids that we're calling in the paranormal field be starseed races? We don't know. They could be. And so I'm gonna start,
Yeah,
looking at them
they
both ways.
I feel like a lot of the cryptids are interdimensional beings, Bigfoot included. Um,
Yeah.
the
And
skinwalker or the Wendigo also included. Mothman, and I don't think Mothman is what people think it is. I don't think
no,
that
I
moth.
think he's a messenger. He's not
I do
the
too.
death dealer.
I do too.
But
I think he's a messenger, and I think he shows up to try to help people
yeah,
to
and
become more aware of a situation.
I've met Bigfoot. Well, I've heard Bigfoot. I haven't physically seen, but I heard Bigfoot's
I have.
talking. And I have met cultures, I will admit, I don't even know what to call them. I just know them on sight and am friends with them, and there are some cultures out there that are like we've ascended, so to speak, to we don't have a name. We just are who we are. And so there are no name star beings out there because they don't want to be classified by a name. And that's perfectly fine. And you just meet them and talk with them like you would anybody else. And so, yeah,
Right.
that's about as much as I can recall right now that
Um,
people would understand who I'm talking about. I'll put it that way.
right, because not all of them you can put a label or a name on them. I understand
Right.
that too, because I know about 4 different species that nobody ever talked about before. I don't know how to, like, classify or label them either. Someone else in the chat says that the Wendigo is a spirit that possesses others in moments of crisis or hunger, crisis of hunger, which I agree that they are something that can possess others. But I also feel like that doesn't exclude the possibility that they're an interdimensional being, because I used to live next to like this portal that would activate on its own once in a while, and we would see the indigo or the Wendigo and the skinwalkers come and go from this portal. And my brother even witnessed the Bigfoot coming in and out of that same
Yeah.
portal.
Well, and here's a concept for to, it kind of tie into that a little bit is so I watch an anime called Bleach, and it's about soul reapers, hollows, and Quincy's, basically it deals with the afterlife. It's like an anime about the afterlife. Well, one of the Soul Reaper captains, which is like one of the upper echelon level, star, or not star, but beings that are there. She's a healer, and they all carry swords they call Zanpakutos that aid them in what they're doing. Well, hers generates this large, like almost like manta ray type being, and when they're on like a battlefield, they will scoop up into the mouth of this manta ray fallen soul reapers or fallen comrades. And when they get back to their society where they live, they call it the Soul Society, he spits them out. And you may think, oh my God, they're sacrificing these people. No, they are healed inside this creature. And
Oh,
so
wow.
where I'm going with this is like, they say like the Wendigo could eat you, but we have so many stories of like soul eaters where they put bread on the body, or sin eaters they call them. Sorry, not soul eaters, sin eaters, where they put, bread on the body and it's supposed to absorb all the evil that's in there, and the person sits there and eats it and then goes into a meditative state, processes it, releases it, and lets it go to
Like a
source.
shaman?
Kind of.
Okay.
But so when you look at it that way, it's like, could, all these creatures that are like scratching us or attacking us, are they attacking us or are they trying to help us? But because we don't recognize them and know what's going on,
We
we're
see
in
it as a
turn,
fear thing. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good point because I say that a lot. I have an alien abduction support group on Facebook. And I say to the abductees a lot that even though it seems scary to us and we come back with bruises or whatever, perhaps that's because of our fear, not necessarily something that they're doing to us. And I know there's people that argue, well, they take you against your will and they're doing these procedures on you and all this stuff, right? And I'm not discounting that those things happen, but perhaps before we came here in our physical human body, we did know that those visits were going to take place.
yeah, soul
We just forgot.
contracts they call them.
We just
Yeah.
totally forgot. And to me, those procedures that they do on us are like kind of no different than going to the doctor for a checkup, you know? I mean,
Well,
I
and
have a scoop mark scar where they took part of my DNA for my stem cells if I need them. I had the procedures done. I remember the procedures. And yeah, at the time, being 16, it seemed scary as hell. But that's because I hadn't fully remembered everything about why I was here. Now that
well,
I
and
do, it changes the way that I feel about it. And I no longer look at it as a threatening thing or a fear based thing. So you have a good point there.
yeah, and another thing too, talking about the abduction thing is when I talk to experiencers that, were taken, and I'll say to them, after this happened, looking where you are today, do you think that that experience helped you gain awareness of what's coming and helped you to mold you today to be open and aware of this? And they were like, and a lot of them will say, I never thought about it, but yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
It actually was a blessing. They actually were helping me to be aware of
Hmm.
what work I'm doing now. And so it's like a stepping stone of, gaining awareness. And so, yeah, because we are taught, you took us against our will. So we think,
Right.
oh, this is an evil, bad experience, but it's really may not be.
Right.
And
Even with
when
them
we were,
talking to us through telepathy. they're teaching us that that telepathic ability is within us, and
Yes.
we don't even realize that.
And one thing that I found kind of comical that I had a moment where I felt kind of stupid and I wanted to bury my head when I realized some aspects of my life when I'm like, when we talk about the secret space program, yes, there, that is very real. I have experience in a lot of it, but I don't have full memory. And because I don't have full memory, I don't know the nomenclature that well. Well, somebody asked me one time, and they were like, "Oh, I was my lab. Were you ever my lab?" And I was like, "What's a my lab?"
Hmm.
And they kind of looked at me and they were like, "You're SSP, right?" But then they were like, they took kind of pity on me and they were like, "Oh, well, my lab is a military abduction." And I was like, "Oh God." And that's why I was like,
No,
I wanted to bury my head, is because I was like, it's so obvious what it is. And I'm like, God, how did I not put that together? But it's so, and what it is it's
well,
like,
I
it's
don't know that that's
ETs and
necessarily a
military.
military. I don't necessarily
Well,
agree that that's a military abduction. Betty and Barney Hill were my lab. Okay, that's a my lab because their aliens did not beam them up into the ship. Their aliens had them walk out of the car, walk up a ramp, go into the UFO, walk back down the ramp, walk back to their car. That's my lab. That's not that's
well,
not the real alien abduction.
when
That
we
was a
say,
military psyop thing.
yeah, but when we're talking
SSP is
military,
different.
we're not talking about like the US Navy or US Air Force or the US Army.
No,
We're talking
SSP is a
the
different thing.
secret government military is working with the ETs and doing this. It's not our main
For my
government.
lab, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand
yeah,
that. But they're not the ones that have the technology to beam you up. They can't break down your physiology of your body and change your molecular structure the
no,
way that the
but
others can. You know, like on Star
yeah,
Trek,
but
beam me up, Scotty. They can't do that because
no,
they don't
they
have
they
that type of
actually,
technology. And that's
yeah,
actually the more of the reptilian types because they're the ones that they don't have the abilities that people think they do. They steal it from others
yeah,
in order
but
to have it. They can't
so
do it on their own.
the difference in from what I have talked with people about with in the nomenclature, the reason they say my lab versus abduction is when it's an ET race that comes in, does what they're doing, and they take you off. They're like, yeah, I was abducted. But when there are like soldiers or men, shadow men there with the ETs entering your room, escorting you out, taking you on a vehicle toward and into the craft. They're like, this is my lab.
I've
That
never
is
heard of
military.
shadow men being able to take anybody anywhere. And I have a lot of
Well,
experience with shadow men, and
it's,
they never took me or my kids anywhere.
I'm not saying shadow beings are doing it. I mean, these soldiers, they look like soldiers, but they're totally blacked out and they
Oh,
have no
okay.
physical markings. So it's like it's a soldier, but there's no, it's like I couldn't look at him and go, dude, you're African, or dude, you're Mexican, or you're Anglo American.
Right.
You,
Mm.
it's all
That's
black.
to
And
me, that
so,
sounds like maybe it's more of an astral visit where it's like someone who's in a room and physically traveling to you astrally, like their
yeah,
soul is visiting you rather than their real body. That's
yeah.
interesting.
And
But
so,
I know those things happen because that's what I did with the jump program. That's I mean, I was sent
yeah.
into
And
rooms with
so
files and things and
I was just clarifying for the audience when I say my lab, I'm like the military abduction. It's because it's people that look like our military
Right.
working with the ETs doing the
Yeah.
abduction
I agree with that. Yeah.
versus just the ETs. There and another thing that needs to be clarified as well is when we say ETs are abducting, we don't mean every single star seed race out there is abducting people. Some of them are in hybrid programs, some of them are not. Some of them are abducting people through soul contracts, others are not. And so
That's true.
we that's where again I go, we as a society have been trained to think of everything is a one or the other. There is no in between. And I'm like, there
Yeah.
is a large in between
Yeah,
that
because there's more than one or two races that are doing it.
right.
Yeah. But I think the bulk of them that do the abductions, especially if it's like lifelong abductions, they're the ones that are working with us, not against us.
Well, and a lot of the abductions are through soul contracts. And soul contracts are agreements that were made before we were born into this world, and our minds were wiped so that we could learn and do what we needed to do unfolding here. And so when we do that and we realize that, it takes and dispels the fear out of, oh my God, they're watching me, they're going to come and take me, are they going to do it again? And what are they doing? And why are they doing this? And it kind of brings it down to, okay, you are coming and taking me up into this craft and like, why? And you can have a conversation with these beings versus being afraid of them because you're like, oh my God, you're here to take me again. It's like, no, no. They may be there to explain, what's going on, but because you're in the energy of fear seeing them, it's like you're not gonna listen to them. You're gonna go into fear and be like, nope, nope, you need to leave, and you'll never get the answers why. And there is, a little bit of, I think, where we talk about the hybrid programs and we talk about, meeting these beings. Well, if an insectoid was to come up, and land and walk up on your doorstep and say, "Hey, we're here to, we want to learn, about you. Do you, and we're willing to share our knowledge with you." And you're looking and it's like a praying mantis talking to you. You're going to be like slamming the door and going, honey, I think it's time to take me to the loony bin. I
Right.
just saw a 6 foot tall praying mantis on two legs talking English. But if a praying mantis had a somewhat human-esque form, came up to you and said, hey, we would like to, share information with you and, learn from you as well, you may not be so afraid because it looks more human
Right.
than insect. And
It's
so
not like
that's
wrecking your psyche to try to wrap your mind around what the hell you're talking to.
right. And so
Yeah.
that's where I think some of these hybrid programs have come from is they're trying to make first contact less of a
Traumatic.
trauma experience
Yeah. I would
and
think so too. Yeah.
less evasive too, because I think there is, in some movies they will, the aliens will say, you're seeing me in this form because your mind, put us in this form, so it would be easier to talk to you this way. And they're like, well, what do you really look like? And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Put the screen back on. And it's like, and a part of me, sits there and goes, that species though had to read your mind against your wishes to make that projection. So, do I want someone reading my mind to
I mean, I get
communicate?
what you're
And
saying, but I don't necessarily think that the screen image is them reading our mind. I think that the screen image is something that their mind puts up that everybody else just sees, and I think that's why we catch those
well,
glitches now in digital TV where they sort of transform,
yeah.
because when they get emotional or they lose track of what they're doing, they're not holding their full screen image, and then we're able to see them.
Well, and the reference I'm actually talking about is the movie Contact, where she meets
Oh,
the alien beings and it's her father. And
gotcha.
they probed her mind and said this was the image that we thought you would easily accept. It's like, yeah,
I gotcha.
you read her mind
Right, right,
instead
right.
of
I
just
gotcha.
making yourself a human. It's like it was
Yeah,
specific.
a specific human. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah,
And
because
so,
there are people who have said they when they're aboard a craft, they see Jesus or they see somebody they know or whatever that's passed on.
right.
Yeah,
And
and that
so,
that could be a
yeah.
screen image. Yeah.
And
Um, oh,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was figuring since nobody had a question, I was like, well, what can I kind of ramble on about and keep going until somebody has a question? Because I'm like, yeah, I like questions when they come in.
Yeah. Um, I mean, we have some comments, but not any more questions other than the ones I've already asked. Um, Arso says
Well,
that some of the beings are being trafficked. He says that Lyrans were one of the species that were trafficked the most next to humans. And I actually can agree with that because
yeah,
I have a group on Sundays. We do remote viewing for things, and we remote viewed Mars. And that was the one common theme that stood out to me the most out of everything that we saw that was similar. We saw people being trafficked, being exchanged as commodities.
oh yeah, we
And,
are.
we've had whistleblowers to come out and say things like that, but people don't necessarily want to believe it. And that was a pretty crazy, that was
Yeah,
a pretty crazy one.
and so yeah, here's some information for your audience that they might find interesting is Mars is inhabited
Yeah.
mainly by insectoids, but there are actually I have to mention this with kind of a laugh because it's a personal connection for me, but there are fields of downed spacecraft there because wars have been fought there. And so, fun fact for people is if you want to know the history of Orion Wars, watch Star Wars. A lot of Star Wars is basically written off of the Orion Wars and tabulated, and
Do you think that the Orions are the Draconian race? Someone in the chat said that earlier.
I don't, the thing is, so when we say like Alpha Centauri, is they're Alpha Centaurians. Well, but on Alpha Centaurian could be Lyrans, could be Arcturians,
Right.
could
Could be more,
be,
just like here on Earth, we have
yeah,
more than one, right? More than one of the species of
yeah.
human.
So
Yeah.
Orion, yes, there could be Draco reptilians there, but there could also be felines there. There could also be dogmen there, and there
Right.
could be, other races that are there. These stars are not specific, like
Yeah, I
even
agree with that.
Pleiades are not just Palladian, that there are
Right,
other races with them.
right. I was actually going to say that because I do remember that I came from the star system in the Pleiades that's just called Taygeta, and we weren't the only species of being that was on that planet. You know, the ones that look,
Yeah.
we weren't the only species.
And
So to
as
say you're a Taygetan doesn't necessarily mean you look like a humanoid.
and the funny thing too is, I don't use AI a lot, and it's not because I'm anti the technology. It's actually I have to make peace with the fact that I was a part of the Electric Wars where humanity fought an AI and other star races fought AI. And so I'm like,
Yeah,
ooh, yeah. The fact that AI is coming here, not a big
yeah,
fan of, but I do know there are positives and
yeah.
non-positive sides of it. But yeah, it's one of
And
those though that once you let it out of the bag, it's gonna
it's
be
there. It's there.
it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's up to us and our responsibility to either guide it in a good way or in a negative way.
Yeah,
Because
and
AI is a learning technology, no different than a little child, right? If you want to look at
right.
it that way.
I
And so
and
do you raise the child to be responsible and respectful and compassionate, or do you raise the child to feel like the world is against them and it's dog eat dog and everybody is horrible and so they should all just be wiped out?
yeah, and that and that's almost virtually what I tell people is, I go, we look at AI as being this sentient self-learning, but its base
It's
code
not
was
there
put
yet.
in by someone.
Yeah,
And was that person a benevolent spiritual being? In which case, we have a spiritual benevolent AI.
right. Well, I
Or
mean,
was
if
it
you think
somebody
about
who
it,
was like a criminal? And we're like, yeah, now we have an AI that's going to be like being taught how to cheat us, how to steal from us, how to kill us, how to manipulate us, enslave us. It's like,
I mean,
yeah,
if you just look at
there's,
humanity, humanity itself, you could say, is an artificial intelligence, the consciousness that's within the body, that's the avatar or the vehicle, right?
right.
We are simply an AI, if you will, that is becoming aware of its awareness. So the AI we've created could potentially eventually be right where we're at now.
Well, and even furthermore
Especially with
is
going to quantum computing.
the Earth could also be viewed as simulation. And when we go
Well,
astral
yes and no.
and out there, that's the real world is our energy forms and
Yeah,
living that way.
yeah.
And
I think
so
Earth is a simulation, but it's a simulation that we create as we go.
we do. It's
Yeah,
self-learning or learning along the way. And
yeah.
it's like the perfect school. It's ever adapting and
Perfect storm.
we're ever adapting and we're at choice to adapt or not adapt.
Yeah. So somebody says, let me see here.
Oh,
Uh,
I remember now something I was going to say earlier.
okay.
A friend of mine brought up something interesting that I never thought about, and it has to do with disclosure in Star Trek, the original series. We see all these different aliens, and we sit there and we look at and go, oh, are these people wearing prosthetic masks? Well, interesting thing to know, prosthetic masks weren't really reproduced in large quantity for movies and everything until the 80s and beyond. This series was in the 60s. And so she brought out the interesting point of some of these aliens that you see in the original series that doesn't really even have a line. They're kind of like in the background. It's like you look at them and having all this makeup and everything on them, and they're like, and she's like, yeah, but let's look at, where we, makeup artists and makeup, designs. There are no visual acuities in the 60s to match some of these characters. And so I kind of, on that grounds and that merit, agree with her. And she says some of those may actually be real ETs on the set, portraying themselves.
Mm,
But we assume it's somebody who's a character. But then look at the show credits. I just thought about this too, is everybody who has a speaking part is listed as who they are.
right.
And so everybody who, is getting paid to be on the show is listed somehow in the show credits. So if this ET person is never listed, are they really a person? Or is it an ET who they allowed on set and said, yeah, help us, bring awareness to the fact that there are aliens out there and that we can coexist and create the Star Trek future that we all want. And
Right.
it's a really interesting, thing to think about. And look at too the spacecraft. A lot of those spacecrafts in that movie or the TV series, you see them like once. It's not even on a lot. It's like you'll see it once. Even the Enterprise, you really only see it like once and maybe twice the entire episode on the outside. Why is it? Because they didn't have the ability to make these ships and make them look real and make them fly. I mean, you hear Star Wars, it's like the space battles. They had to reinvent the technology of the time to make the space battles in Star Wars. People don't realize that. The
Right.
the top people in the industry could not make these. They had to fudge it and tear things apart and make it work. And then as the movies progressed, the technology got better because they were able to build it better because they were under budget, under productive because they couldn't make it work. But then we have these ships in the original series that you see doing stuff, and you're like, that's more advanced than Star Wars and all those. And that was top line, top everybody. How can that be? And so that's where I say, it kind of feeds into the mind. Is that a real craft? And we were led to believe it was
Yeah.
a model that was made.
Yeah. I can be on board with that. I just want to give a shout out to John real quick for giving me a compliment. He said that not all Pleiadians are beautiful blondes like Kelly.
That's
Thank
true.
you. Thank you very much. And that is true. They're not all blonde. When I met my Pleiadian family, my mother is gorgeous, but she has black hair, long black hair. So they're not all blonde for sure. They're
Yeah.
not. But thank you very much for the compliment. I'll take it.
And and so, again, when we talk about, you know, wanting the Star Trek history, it's already here. And what I find interesting is, the original series, the communicators, you would flip it open. And it wasn't until like late 80s, 90s, we were using flip phones, and we still do
Yeah.
somewhat use flip phones today. And what was the tagline when we had the first flip phone? Look, the stage of Star Trek is coming
Right.
upon us. We're able to flip open a device and talk to someone, just like in Star Trek. And it's we would compare our evolutions to the TV shows. Like, hey, look, we're
Yeah.
finally catching up to this from the 1960s. And I look at, the world too, with like the interesting thing about Stargate was, I was watching one of the episodes today, actually, because it's now on a 24/7 channel, all three series and the movies too. And they talk about what's the mission parameters for the Stargate program to go out, procure weapons and technology to defend the planet from the Gould and from any other enemies. Well, whenever they bring something back and it backfires, why does it backfire? Because the other agency that's not the Stargate agency that knows this is dangerous and shouldn't really be toyed with is like, no, we gotta save the planet. This is your mandate. You have to make this work here. And what ends up happening? They release a plague or a virus into the computers or into, somebody gets, a
Hmm.
virus and are like quarantined. Why? Because somebody in the shadow deal didn't want to take precautions and didn't want to listen to the harm that's coming and wanted the tech, wanted to weaponize it for defense. And to me, it shows the stupidity of everybody that's outside of what this group is doing, trying to tell them what they should be doing. It's like, I'm sorry, these people go off world, meet races, defend themselves, and come back, and you're gonna tell them how to do the job of protecting the planet. I'm like, no, I think it's quite the other way around. Is you should be listening to them, and if they say this is a no-go tech, we really shouldn't play with this, it's like ship it back or destroy it and end of story, move on, find something else. Not
Right.
all this drama of, yeah, you were right. We really shouldn't have played with that. Yeah, now lives were lost because you were stupid and thought you knew better than we did when we're the ones who are going out and looking at this every day.
Yep. I agree. Okay. I think that's a good place for us to wrap this up. But real quick, I want to give out a shout out to Becky, who gave me my on air sign that's behind me. And I will move it so that the microphone part shows up because the lighting on it is not stellar. But thank you very much. I love it.
It
And
is
I
really
want
cool.
to,
And a
she's
shout
like,
out to Grogu.
right? My Yoda?
Oh, is that Yoda? I thought it was
Yeah,
Grogu. Sorry.
it's Baby Yoda. Yeah. Baby
Ah,
Yoda.
yeah. See, I, I said that I was in a Star Trek or Star Wars forum group,
Yeah.
and when they first announced Mandalorian, I was like, "Oh, it's so cute that, Baby Yoda is coming out." And the admin that created the group goes, "His name is not Baby Yoda, and since you don't know his name, you are not a true Star Wars fan." And I
Yeah.
got banned from the group. I
Yeah.
was
He's
like,
the Mandalorian, but I like to say Baby Yoda.
"Yeah," but I was like, "Dude, the show hasn't even aired yet."
Right.
Probably majority of the people don't know his name is Grogu.
Right?
And how are you banning people for that? It's like, oh
That's
my,
ridiculous.
the fact I knew it was Yoda should be impressive enough.
Right? Yeah. I didn't know that was his name, and I watched the damn movie. But I didn't remember that. He's
Yeah,
just baby Yoda to me,
I haven't seen the movie, but I
but
did
he's
watch,
awesome.
yeah, I did watch a funny thing where Katie Sackhoff and one of the other main lady bounty hunters from The Mandalorian were talking, and they were talking about the scene where Luke arrives in the series,
Yeah.
and she's like, well, I knew who it was. And she goes, they told you? She goes, no, I just knew he was coming. And she's like, nobody told me. And they're like, you didn't figure it out? And she was like, there were all these clues, like R2D2, instead of being blue, is painted green. Like that really camouflaged him. And I'm sitting there laughing and going, God, how silly she must feel like right now, going, all these clues were in front of her and she totally never put it together. And I was like, yeah, this is another one of those moments where I like to say, for people who say the government and religion can never pull the wool over their eyes, it's like, congratulations. Look at this. It's totally possible because look at what happened to this celebrity. You really think
Right.
that you're exempt from that? I don't think so, because I don't think you knew either.
Right. I gotta move him. He's getting tangled up in my microphone cord.
But yeah,
Some somebody in
and
the go ahead.
it was, oh, I was just gonna say it was super cute in the series too, where it's like you see him being trained as a Mandalorian, but he's a Jedi, and he's like, this isn't the Jedi way, but it's the Mandalorian way. And I love the scene where he gets to be the apprentice level. He has to beat somebody. And this little kid is like, I can't fight this pipsqueak. And he's like, no, you need to. And he takes two darts and he's like, well, if you take this third dart, you're going to fail the test and you're not going to be able to do this. You need to do it. It's okay. And all of a suddenly you see him squeeze his hand and the three darts just appear and he uses the force and hits the kid. And they're like, yep, you're being trained. You did it. And he's like, that wasn't fair. That was cheating. And he goes, he passed on the way. You have now shown yourself, little one, that you are not ready to be at this level. And he's like, yes, sir. And he puts his head down and he's like, yeah, I had to swallow your pride that you lost to the Force.
Yeah,
And he's like, yes, you can use the Force and you can do this without breaking the code of the Jedi.
right. Okay, any last words you want to say to the audience before we close it out?
Um, sure. And I'll make it quick, is never give up hope. There's always hope no matter what's going on in your life. And follow your own discernment and follow your resonance. So if something feels right to you and you know how your body tells you something's right, follow it. If not, let it go. Don't take it on. Don't attack somebody for it. Just move on and find what is your resonance.
That's great advice. And I agree with that 100%. I approve that message. My name is Kelly, and I approve that message. All right, guys, thanks for being with us and hanging out all this time. I really appreciate you being here with us. And Michael, I would love to have you back on again. I think that there's so much for us to talk about together
Oh yeah.
beyond Stargate and Star Wars and Star Trek and all of that, that we could have a lot of really good conversation. So
Yes, anytime. I'm happy to come back.
awesome. Thanks for being with us, and we will see all of you again. Oh, tomorrow night. Augie Nost will be back tomorrow night. So tune in for
Oh,
that.
I
Yeah,
love him. He is a really cool guy.
he is. And he's a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, yes, especially when you get him on time travel.
I know. And we're actually going to talk about all of the quantum stuff that Trump just signed into his executive orders versus quantum consciousness and how all of that merges. So I think
That'll
it's
be a
going to be a
great
really,
show.
yeah, it's going to be a good conversation. All right. Peace out, guys. I love you all. See you soon.